Yeah. I was like, what did you do already? You can't be messing up your mics. It was. All right, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. So this morning is a little bit different. As we talked about, we have some guests from Link, and they are an organization that we supported for a long time. A long time. Since before my time at the church, we've been supporting this organization, and they do a lot to lift up leaders, and they're going to be telling us exactly what it is we do, how they work with the community, how we've supported them, and also, I'm sure you guys are going to talk about ways that you would love to support us and the things that you guys do. So real quick, I would like to introduce each one of them. First off, we have Dahlia. Dahlia, what is your official position?
Is it on?
Good work.
Can y'all hear me? I'm an associate city director with Link.
All right, and we're going to find out exactly what that
means. Yeah.
And then we also have Pastor Jonathan.
Yes.
He is from Shepherd of the Hills in Rancho Cucamonga.
That is right.
Yes.
Well done.
All
Well
right.
done.
Thank you very much. And he's going to tell us all about how he works with Link as well. And then we have Stella, who you are the head honcho, correct?
City director.
City director.
Head
There we
honcho.
go. Head honcho.
Yeah.
Nice. And so why don't we give them a big welcome. I don't know, we don't always do this, but I want to do it just to make you feel nice and welcome here. But they're going to be sharing what exactly they do and how we can cooperate with them. So thank you guys so much for being here, and tell us all about it.
Thanks, Pastor Eric.
Thank you. Can you hear me? You know, I don't often use this kind of mic, so hey, thank you for being here again. For many of you, if you were here earlier in the service, I'm going to start with why Link, as it relates to my personal journey. Okay, so as an immigrant growing up, I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and immigrated with my family up north in San Francisco when I was 9 years old. And as an immigrant growing up, I was bullied a lot, really from like 5th grade all the way to senior year. It was rough. But not just that, I also grew up in a very patriarchal family. Patriarchal in that I have one older brother and an older sister. There are 3 of us. I'm the youngest of 3. And my brother is always favored because patriarchal family senses everything. So my brother's always been favored. And so you can only imagine growing up as an immigrant, being different, being bullied, and in a home where it's highly patriarchal, where I felt like my brother's always the favored and the loved one. I grew up just lacking confidence, self-worth. I questioned love, God's love. But then, yet, I also grew up in an Asian American Lutheran church in San Francisco. And it was in that church that there's a spiritual mentor. Her name is Mary Ma. And she really intentionally loved on me and discipled me and invested her time in me, spent time with me. She's the one that drew out the gifting that God has gifted me and drew out that gift and say, hey, I see in you this gift, and created a lot of safe space and opportunities within the church for me to serve all through my years growing up in junior high, in high school, in college, and well into my young adult age. And so that's when I realized the power of empowerment. That's when I realized the power of encouragement of what who I call Miss Mary did to me when I was growing up as a youth. And so, it took so many people like Mary and different mentors in my life to say, Stella, I see in you this gift. I see in you being this type of leader. I see in you the ability and the capacity to do this, and created the space for me to actually do it. But not just to give me free reign, but to really disciple me as a leader growing up. What does it mean to be a godly leader? And intentionally decided only to be the leader that I am today. So to me, why Link? Link started out to be an organization that saw a lot of leaders in community, especially indigenous leaders, immigrant leaders, who are just ill-equipped, who face barriers when it comes to just having leadership development resources. And really, Link was birthed out of the heart of coming alongside these leaders who are, like me, growing up lacking confidence, self-worth, don't believe in who God created me to be, and really speak into their life. And so Link, the reason why I love Link and what Link does so much is, as a leadership organization, we, the team, get to encourage leaders, we get to empower leaders, we get to pray with them, and really is so many leaders, and maybe some of you are sitting in here today, or maybe you know someone who is a local leader, who just need the I see in you moment, like what I had received from Miss Mary and other mentors at a church where I grew up. And so many leaders need to know that they're not alone when they are leading. I'm sure many of you who have served in leadership capacity or known a leader or married to one, you've experienced how lonely that journey can be. And so there are leaders who need to know that they're not alone. And as a team, we get to be in the people business of encouragement and empowerment so that they can thrive in who God created them to be and what is God calling them to serve and really to do that well. And so like how I was lacking confidence and support and needed a leader to come alongside me, now we get to do that, and that's my personal why. So that's a longer story I want to start with the why that's tied personally to me. And I'm really gonna go into the what is Link very briefly, and how do we do what we do. And then I'm gonna turn it over to my associate city directors, first to Dahlia, to share about the impact of Link. Like I said earlier in the service that this church have come alongside Link financially for many years. So we're so thankful to be here to show our gratitude and to share with you the impact that you have in this organization. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with John, also Associate City Director, at the very end to share the future of Link. What are some of our goals? And what are some ways that your support is continuing to help further these goals and for us to help serve churches like you as well. So what is very simple? What is Link? We're simply a leadership development organization. I mean, I can just answer it with just that. What are we? We're a leadership development organization. And really what we believe in is no leader walks alone. So our secret ingredients, or I guess our secret sauce, is that we want to be with a leader in the long haul. So I've been with a leader since I started with Link back in 2016. I'm still walking alongside her. Her calling has not changed in that she's a teacher, but her call has changed a few times, whether it be at a director at a preschool, or being in her family, or being at a now administrator at another preschool. I'm coming alongside her in the long haul, as long as she wants someone to be there to encourage her and to empower her to continue to lead in the different contexts that God has called her. So that's what we really believe and thrive to do, is no leader walks alone. So that's what we are. So how do we do that? The team had wonderfully passed out this one sheet that you all have. And really, it's just laid out in the back of what we do. We do things in 3 ways. When we meet with a local leader, what we want to do, and this is in partnership with God, and really the Holy Spirit does all the work, is develop the leader as a person, because we believe in the being and the doing, right? The character and the competency. As you know, there's so many moral failures out there with those in leadership position. And Satan always, that's where spiritual warfare happens, right? They constantly get attacked. When you're serving in leadership position, serving the Lord. And so we want to develop them as person. We want to come alongside them to help them navigate life and ministry in a healthy way. What is your work-life balance, right? How are you doing in your relationship with God? As a male leader, how are you doing in your relationship with your wife? As a father, As a female, we check in, how are you doing as a wife? How are you doing as a mom? Because it's holistic. We believe that if you're healthy, holistically, you lead out of a healthy space. So we want to develop you as a person. That's the first primary way. The second way is to develop their ministry. Well, local leaders have so many different God-given dreams, whether it be God is asking them to start a brand new ministry at a church, or to plant a church, or to start a nonprofit, or maybe to start a for-profit. Whatever that dream is that God has placed in their heart to make a difference in the community with the gospel, we want to come alongside them to help them with strategic planning, maybe to help them create a fundraising plan. Maybe it is to how do you recruit a team? How do you cast a vision as a leader? How do you recruit volunteers? All the things that is needed to develop framework and structure for that nonprofit or that for-profit or that church or that ministry to thrive with impact. So that's the second way. We want to develop their competency and plan that they have for the stream that God has given them. And then lastly, we want to build around these leaders a network of support. Because of our promise that no leader walks alone, and with the three of us in the team, Link Southern California is huge. We can't ensure that every leader doesn't walk alone. So we want to surround them with a network of supporters. The network where we want every leader to have an encourager who's always encouraging them, praying for them, checking in on them. We want every leader to have navigator. The navigator is the one that's helping you with strategic planning, with anything that you require structure to launch well, whatever that ministry is. And then another layer of strategic advisor. That's where many of you can come in that we can invite you. For example, we had a leader who wanted to start his own business. Had no idea how to write a business plan, but there might be congregants in our church that we partner with that have been in business and know how to write a business plan that can come alongside and be that strategic advisor for that leader to begin writing a business plan. Or even there are leaders who have no idea how to look at budget and P&L, right? Profit and loss statements. Maybe there are accountants and CPAs sitting in churches who can come alongside and volunteer your time and teach these leaders how to read a budget, how do you create a budget. Very practical ways. Another layer is kind of like a financial backer. We, as a nonprofit organization, we do a lot of our fundraising as well, and we're connected to a lot of different foundations and grants who wants to continue to give generously. And so if we know a leader, what they are wanting to start, and they need funding, we can also connect them to other foundations and grants, or even churches who believe in their cause and begin to have that partnership happen so that that ministry or that business or nonprofit can begin and make an impact in the local community. So that's very quickly our how. I start with why I believe in Link. I start with what, which is a leadership development organization, and the how that's laid out, just 3 simple steps in that paper that you have. So I'm gonna turn the time and hand it over to Dahlia with the impact piece, and then John with the future piece.
Yeah, so like Stella said, my name is Dahlia, and we're really happy to be here this morning with y'all because we're really thankful for what your generous giving has allowed us to do. And I want to share a little bit with you all what that looks like practically and what we've been able to do because of your giving. So I'm going to highlight 2 pieces. So the first is we are becoming more intentional with reaching out to Hispanic churches and leaders, and really Spanish-speaking churches and leaders. When I first came to Stella, I was actually getting my Master of Divinity, and I was learning about pastoral health and church leadership and what ethics and worship mean, and just generally about the God we serve. And I remember going back to my church, and it's a Spanish-speaking church, and just wondering if there were any resources that we had in Spanish so that I can communicate something similar that I've been learning in seminary to them. And of course, there are resources in Spanish, but not to the extent and the depth that there are in English. And so when I first met Stella, I was sharing with her, wow, this is something that is on my heart. I want to see the Hispanic church resourced. And Stella was also had the same sort of vision and burden on her heart as well, that we can do that through Link. And so when I came on the team, one of the ways that we are becoming more intentional is by translating our resources into Spanish. So we have a new start guide that walks our leaders, exactly what Stella said, figuring out the vision, what their goals are, what their purpose is, the values and the strategies that they can use in their ministries. That guide walks them from start to finish, right? It walks them from, well, what do you want to do, all the way to fundraising and creating a plan so that they can have some financial backing. So we've translated that resource now from English to Spanish, and we're hoping that that's going to come out this year, and that's going to be available for all Spanish-speaking churches and leaders, and even outside, those who are outside of the church but still carrying out ministry, right? And so that's become very important to us. Another way that we've helped or we've become more intentional is through starting a cohort. So in February, if you all know any Spanish-speaking leader or anyone with a Hispanic background, we would love to connect with you all, and that you all would reach out to us, because we're having a cohort specifically for these leaders. We know that in ministry there are setbacks and there are challenges, but there are also really good highs and things that we can share with one another. So that cohort is going to be where Hispanic leaders are going to find encouragement so that they can continue serving in the ministry that they're called by God to do. So that's a few ways that we're becoming more intentional. And even as I translated this new Start Guide, I was like, I know of a church who needs this, and it's my church. I go to a Spanish-speaking church, as I said, and my pastors in my church, they were already excited because for a while we kind of had been lacking clarity in a lot of the things that we were doing, lacking clarity in vision and mission. What is even the difference between a vision statement and a mission statement, right? And our values and our strategies. And so when I said, hey, I have this resource and it's in Spanish, they were like, great, let's do it. And so we just finished that in January. And my goodness, they were already excited about it. But now that they have clarity, now that they know what the vision is of the church, and not just what the vision is, but what has God called us to do, they are so much more excited. I mean, I know the new year is always about resolutions and making new goals and being a better person and all of that. But really, because we've gone through this process, not only do we have this sense of there is a new beginning because of the new year, but really there is a new beginning because now we have clarity and now we can go forward, right? And so your giving has made that possible, right? It's made it possible for my church to have that fire once more, have that passion again, and it'll make it possible for other churches that are Spanish-speaking to do that as well. So we are becoming more intentional in those ways. And then the other way that I wanted to highlight that your impact has been, or your giving has impacted the work that we do, is through reaching out to the younger generation. So we know that the younger generation are the leaders of the future, right? We hear that a lot, but they're actually not the leaders of the future at all. They're the leaders of today, and we want to pour into them today, even as young as high school, I think Jonathan said outside, because we know that they're in times of their life that are critical and that are vital for their future, right? So we want to get in there early. We've even started partnering with students at Concordia University in Irvine. And my goodness, it has been incredible, the kind of conversations that we've had with them. I know Jonathan has been coaching, Jonathan, from who you'll hear in a little bit, has been coaching a student. I've been mentoring another, and the conversation that I've had with this particular student has been incredible. When we first started, she was anxious about the future. She's a senior in Concordia right now, so she was anxious about what is going to come, where am I going to go, am I going to pursue a master's degree or take some time off? And we were kind of walking through that process. And of course, she's had other professors and teachers speak into that. But as we were walking through it, she realized, oh wait, I want to go actually into counseling. So seeing just even the impact that a semester long, that I had with her conversation where she was anxious and she went to now having a little bit more clarity as to what path she wants to take. I mean, that in and of itself is phenomenal, because we get to speak into these leaders who are preparing themselves, not just in training, not just in theological training, but actually preparing themselves to be ministers, not in the church, but outside of the church, like in fields like counseling, right? And we know that we need Christian leaders in all spheres of society. And so we get to do that as we partner with students at Concordia. We've been also looking at partnering with schools such as Biola and Azusa Pacific University, and any school who will open its doors for us, because we believe so much in what we do, and we believe that truly no leader should walk alone, right? And so that's what we're called to do. And I hope that gives you a little bit more of a picture of what we do and how your giving has impacted so many who don't have the resources to hire somebody for an hour of coaching or to hire somebody for a consistent mentoring session, right? But because you've given, it's made it possible for those who don't necessarily have the resources right now to take advantage of those resources and materials that we offer. So, John? Yeah.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, good morning, y'all. So I'm a pastor for 16 years. It's Sunday morning. I'm at a church. I have to say good morning. It's just the way it is. It's in the book, and so just
Say good morning.
I know, right?
Sorry.
It's like embedded. Just a little bit about me, because every time somebody does like a bio, it sounds like they're giving you your resume, and I'll give you my resume a little bit, but I want it really to be, I want to share it with you guys because it really is a journey, because I was born in Kansas. Lived in Kansas all my life, y'all. And a decade of Texas gave me the functional y'all, so I use it a lot. It's very functional. And growing up in that environment, it was funny, I marked to Pastor Eric when I came in here, I felt like I was back in Kansas. The architecture of this place, and even those lamps. Chanute, Kansas, Zion Lutheran Church, Chanute, Kansas had those exact same lamps. So you guys are rock stars already, because that was like one of my home churches. But growing up in that environment and kind of being called into the ministry, it was very straightforward. I felt like ministry was very straightforward. I felt like being a pastor was very straightforward. And yet, as I was being called into that ministry, as I went to Concordia, Seward, Nebraska, population 6,000 people, and it was big. It was big, guys. And it was just all this progression of simplicity. And then when I went to St. Louis for the seminary, I started realizing the complexity, especially of multi-ethnic ministry, but also the misfire. I'm like the great-great-great-grandfather of the millennial generation. I was born on the first month of the first year that they say you're a millennial, January 1981. And so I realized coming out of Kansas, going to St. Louis, the misfire that was happening with the church and the millennial generation specifically, and with the next generation. And that really informed me as I went through 4 years of seminary education, as I took my first call in beautiful Monterey Bay. It was a tough first call, guys. In beautiful Monterey Bay, California. But I learned, because I went to this beautiful congregation. It was the most loving congregation in the world, and the youngest person there was 50. The average age of the congregation was 76. And it just informed me so much of where's all the young people? They were still around, and there was some interaction. Where are all the young people? And so, in kind of moving forward, I went to Texas, and I did 10 years of basically next-gen ministry in Texas, at a campus, a 25-acre beautiful campus in Houston, Texas, a pre-K 3 all the way through high school. And it was gorgeous, but almost every single one of my students, especially in high school and middle school, didn't go to church. 90% non-churchgoers at this beautiful Christian school. And they talked me through. They ministered to me as much as I ever ministered to them. Then I went to downtown Austin, Texas, hip Austin, Texas, and did college ministry at the University of Texas for 4 years. And again, they sort of ministered to me as what do you guys think about the church, and how do you guys interact with it? And from a lot of different backgrounds and spaces. And that, again, formed me some more. So I decided, well, the answer, Lutherans' answer to everything is either donuts or coffee, which I had a lot of, by the way, or more education. So I went back and got my doctorate on next-gen missional leadership through a confessional understanding. So I read a lot of Luther and Melanchthon, and I read a lot of other people talking about the next-gen ministry and leadership development. And after I finished it in 2020. That was a heck of a year to finish your doctorate. There was no ceremony. Here's your diploma. Go have fun with it. But I finished in 2020, and I thought, well, that must solidify it. I must know everything. And I'm like, nope, I don't know anything. I actually have more questions now than when I started. And so I was senior pastor. I've been senior pastor at Shepherd of the Hills for 5 years now, and in going through that process and seeing family after family after family either leave the church, move out of the state, which is pretty common for California from what I hear, but also just keep saying that the church is not connecting with us on a practical level. We love the worship. We love the liturgy. We love even the community. But what do we do with it? What do we do with it? We walk out of these doors and we're like, go parent, or walk out of these doors and go work. That's fine. But what do we do with it? And that really struck me and really drove me to ultimately get my certification in life coaching as well. Because as a pastor, I really knew theology well. I knew it very well. And yet I didn't know how to put it into practice so many times for my own people. And so I went and got certified and went and got trained as a life coach just so I could walk alongside people to say, how do you actually take this gospel vision, this gospel proclamation that's so beautifully made that the world's going to think is foolishness, and go do something amazing with it? And it could be super quietly amazing. It could be the most mundane, amazing thing ever. Or it could be this huge thing that everybody can see. No matter what it is, what are we going to do with it? And keep bringing me back to Hebrews 10. This is a Bible study, so I got to do some Bible stuff here. Hebrews 10. And it says, we love Hebrews 10 because of two reasons. It tells us not to stop meeting. And so every church person I've ever met is like, don't stop meeting, right? We should not give up on meeting. That's Hebrews 10, right? And then the other thing is keep strong to your confession. That's very Lutheran. Like, keep strong to your confession. But sandwiched in between verse 25 and verse 23 in Hebrews 10 is verse 24 that says, and try to figure it out. I forget exactly the word, but basically try to figure it out, how to stir up one another for love and good deeds. And that brings me back to Ephesians 2, which we love as well as Lutherans. By grace you have been saved. Ephesians 2 is grace you have been saved. Oh, good. Woo! That's good. I like that. Yeah, I like grace. It is so good. But then what? To do the works, the good works that God has prepared for you to do. And I just think we're so amazing at the confession part, and we're so amazing at the idea of grounding ourselves in grace and God's love and forgiveness and the sacramental realities of this. But we forget that as we go from this place, there is this amazing work that God has us to do. And as I was taking communion, I was looking at your all's altar, which is just awesome, by the way. I could just kneel at this altar for a while. This mosaic right here. This mosaic is just killer, y'all. In a good way. Killer meaning good. Sorry. And it's so great because as I was sitting there, I was thinking, this is why I joined Link. Because Link really introduced me to people like Dahlia and to Stella and to Belen and to Oshahan. All these are from very different backgrounds. Very different backgrounds. And for me, they taught me so much about what it means to walk alongside people, both as a leadership development and as an individual coach or mentor. And the reason I say all that, guys, is because I've seen the impact. I've seen the impact that has on that believer in Christ, that person that's journeying with Jesus. Because they're usually pretty strong on theology. They're usually pretty strong on worship. But they're not strong on what to do with it all. As they walk out of the beautiful halls of the sanctuary, as they walk away from an impactful Bible study, whatever they're walking away from that the church is lovingly and beautifully providing, they're like, what do I do with it? They don't have the Dahlia, they don't have the Stella, they don't have the John, they don't have the whoever to then walk. And pastors aren't designed that way, guys. We're trying to take care of 200 or 300 people. We're like asking, are you sick? Okay, you're not good. Okay, high five. Good. It's like, we're trying to caretake. We're trying to shepherd. And then there's a beautiful work that should never be ignored. We could go to Ephesians 4. For so many of our pastors, so many of our church workers, they are in that shepherd-teacher category, and that's beautiful. We need shepherds and we need teachers. But also in that category is we need this sort of what I call apostles, and who are also into evangelists. And those are the guys that they'll walk with people in their God-given dream and say, what can we do with it? What can we do with it now? God's put a dream on you. Maybe it's to start a quilting ministry right here. Maybe it's to start a school for those that are struggling to stay in the regular schools. Maybe it's whatever. I've heard it all. Every time I hear a God dream, I'm like, okay, I never would have thought about that, but let's do it. just imagine having somebody next to you who is also a Jesus follower, that every time God put a dream on your heart, even the littlest dream, guys, and said, yeah, let's do it. And it's one of my favorite texts from 1 Samuel. How many times you got a pastor who quotes 1 Samuel? 1 Samuel, there's a, and I think it's like chapter 20. I'm losing it right now. But it is Jonathan, the son of Saul. So Saul's not the greatest king, but Jonathan's a good prince. And he is going to go, he's like walking by this Philistine encampment, like entrenched on a mountain. And he says to his armor bearer, we never know the name of the armor bearer, but he says to the armor bearer, hey, I think we should go take that down. Just him and his armor bearer. And his armor bearer says this, and I love it, 1 Samuel. He says, go, do what your heart's desire, and I am with you. Like that's what Link does. It's the dream that God put on Jonathan's heart. We're going to go take down the Philistine army and bring glory to God. All right, really? We're going to die, right? I mean, that should be everybody's response. And yet the armor bearer in this moment of Holy Spirit, majestical madness says, go for it. I'm with you. And that's all of what Link keeps doing. So our future endeavors as we continue to develop Link is coming alongside more and more ministries, whether those are churches or whether those are nonprofits, even redemptive businesses, and say, how can we walk with you specifically? For me, the big dream there is to expand that really out to understanding how does coaching fit in with that, because we have a great step-by-step guide. We're going to get you started on your dream. We have a great leadership development as a holistic leader. How is God developing you, both through scriptural principles and through solid leadership development principles? And yet I'm interested even beyond the cohorts, the communal moments of that. It's like now on a one-on-one, how is God molding and shaping? How's God transforming you as a leader? As you transition into new seasons as a leader or brand new seasons as a brand new leader, how is God transforming you? And that's where I think life coaching, that one-on-one, or those, not just life coaching, but coach and mentor, we call them navigators as well, that one-on-one encounter. We're trying to build up that one-on-one even more and more. And then ultimately, guys, what we'd love to start is a whole incubator system, a whole system that we can hand off for any generation, multi-generational and multi-ethnic in focus, that we're calling Soul, the School of Urban Leadership. It's a big dream of ours, a big dream of mine especially, that says, what would happen if we developed a whole incubator system that no matter where you are coming from in your leadership development or your idea, your vision, your God-ordained vision, that you could kind of plug into this soul process. And maybe you're lacking in education. You want to get deeper in educational endeavors, theological endeavors. Yeah, we got that. Maybe you want to workshop this idea. You're like, I am so afraid it's going to fall flat on its face. Is there any way I can just workshop it with you guys or with the team? Like, absolutely. Or maybe it's even communal. I just need support. I need people around me, and you can't just rely on Stella and John and Dahlia all the time. I need just a whole system walking with me. Yeah, let's start a team around you, and let's move forward with that. But this whole idea of Soul, School of Urban Leadership, is to take the city context. And I know you all know, but a kid from Kansas still trying to figure out, do you guys know you're in like an urban context? Like, I don't know where I go in Southern California where I'm not in an urban context. I'm like out in the middle of the desert. I'm like, yeah, it still feels like an urban context. But this whole idea of urban context, you guys know that Brea is very different than, like, say, Anaheim, or Anaheim is very different than LA. I didn't know that. Like, I'm still learning that, but you all know that intrinsically. So to take that sort of information and to say, how do we provide for you guys not just these leadership guides, but a whole system, incubator system, where you can plug into and say, for your context, for what you're trying to do, we can kind of specially craft an individual system for you to help you launch out or whatever you're doing with that God-ordained dream. So it's kind of some big dreams of us, and that's also our way of, not only do we want to raise money, that's what I get to do. So if you ever get a phone call from anybody, it'll probably be me saying, hey, you want to give to Link? And I love doing that. I love doing that for things I believe in. But we're also trying to create sustainable systems. So Soul would be like, hey, would you pay like $100 for a subscription to Soul? Or would you pay $1,000 and you can do as much as you want in this? Sort of like idea of Netflix. You pay your $15 and you get all the videos you want. You can stream and all the things. So we're playing with that, because not only are we trying to design it for a generation that has been in the church or been in ministry for decades, but we're also trying to design it for people coming out, people coming out of high school, people coming out of college that already are having these dreams. They're being entrepreneurial at 17 and 18 because they realize the challenges, the financial challenges that already await them. But they also are passionate. They're on fire. And we want to catch it whenever it happens. If that's on fire at 16-year-old, we'll walk alongside you. If that's on fire at 26-year-old, we'll walk alongside you. If you're on fire at 96-year-old, and I want to meet you, by the way, and there are some on fire 96-year-olds out there, I know it. We want to walk with you. So, all right, that's it. I could talk forever. I'm a pastor, so I better.
No worries, no worries. I wanted to make sure that you get a very small glimpse of who we are, what we do, put faces to the organization that your church has so faithfully wrote checks to every month.
Yes.
And I want to leave some time for questions and answer. Before that, I did pass around a board for you to put in your contact if you want to continue to know how you're making an impact with your giving. We do have e-newsletter every month. If you end up being on social media, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
And TikTok.
Yeah, and now we actually have a leadership podcast now too that's just started. So you'll get to hear a lot more interviews of the leaders that we come alongside and what they're doing as well. That's really new. There's only been one episode, so we'll have to wait for more before we can share more about that.
And sign up if you are at all interested or know somebody who may be interested in Link, because then you can just directly contact us or we'll follow up with you. Because that's the biggest way we find new leaders, is this beautiful network that's called God's Church. Like you guys saying, hey, I want to do it, or I have a niece that wants to do it, or I have whatever. Give us a name. Give us an email. We don't need personal information. Just give us an email and we'll follow up. Because God is working amazing through his body, connecting the leaders.
So thank you. Questions?
Come on, people of God. You always have questions. Don't be shy. You give a lot of money, you should ask questions.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, well, so locally for Link Southern California, we're a team of 4. There's actually another wonderful lady, Belen. She's our social media communication specialist, and she worships at Good Shepherd in Downey, and she's not here today. But it's the team of 4 locally, and I'm the only full-time, well, John's basically full-time.
Yeah, basically.
Started this year. Both Belen and Dahlia are bivocational, in that they both actually work in 2 different nonprofits, and they can share a little bit more. So that's Link SoCal, but Link nationally, we're in 7 different cities. So I shouldn't really even call it city, but started in Houston, and then LA, now we call SoCal, Bay Area, Milwaukee, Twin Cities, Seattle, Tacoma, and Chicago. Did I miss any? I think those are the 7. So nationally, if you're talking about staff-wise, it's a little bit more, but each city's capacity is a little different.
Yeah, and we're supported by what we call Link Central. Is that what we call it?
Well, it's Link Ministries International.
Yeah.
That's like a mother organization.
And we are supported by them. They help us with like capital campaigns and those kind of things on a yearly basis. So there is Sally gets to go to BAM, biannual meeting, and so we are part of a national movement, and I love that. I love talking with city directors up in the Bay Area, which is very West Coast vibes, for us. But it's also great to see what's going on in Chicago, what's going on in Twin Cities, what's going on in other metros as well, and sort of play off of each other.
Yeah, and that's kind of laid out in the sheet on the bottom where it says financials. In the expenditure, you'll see a line item of 20%. So that goes back to kind of like that mother organization that supports us in the back end.
It's a great question.
Yeah. Yes.
This seems really similar to like a startup accelerator for profit. Is that accurate? Except you're helping people with either like their ministry dreams or more like, as you mentioned,
Yeah, yeah.
a great
For sure, there is definitely, that's a great one. Yes, although because we are a leadership development organization, not every leader is about starting up something, but those who are, that's exactly it, in how to understand what we do.
And even leaders who have gone through our guide and they are starting up ministries, even after they finish the guide, we still continue with them beyond that guide. And we offer them care, checking in on them on a monthly basis or sometimes bi-monthly basis, depending on their time. So we're with them as long as they welcome us, basically.
I'm so glad this question was asked
Yeah.
because, guys, this is why we love you guys. Thank you so much, and we need you going in the future. The question, the for-profit version of us costs anywhere between $10,000 and $100,000. Just me alone, my going rate for an hour of life coaching is $150 an hour. My life coach who I have is getting $400 an hour. But they are insanely worth it. And I don't really move forward very well without them. And that's the thing. And I'm not saying that, hey, we're worth $100,000, which we're at least worth $100,000. But, but that's why we are so insistent. And Stella, I did not believe this 2 years ago, but Stella won me over, is we're insistent to offer everything, at least at first, for free. Free of charge. We're going to do it. Because there is a lot of nonprofits speak. There is a lot of paperwork that Stella can help out. There's a lot of business planning, budget sheets, all that kind of stuff. It is an accelerant in that way. And especially on the individual leadership level, we're providing that even more and more as well. People that, charge $2,000, $3,000 to go to their 2 or 3 day conference will provide you free of charge over maybe a 2-month individualized approach. But again, we're absolutely convinced that we need to offer all that first section for free. Mm-hmm. Now we're developing back end, sustainable ideas. That's my goal. But that is such a great question. Thank you for asking it, because that is why the donations, especially from the local church, are so important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Got a question. One of the things that our ministry feels is large, for Bishop Hughes, we always say. The key point is you need to empower them, correct? Give them tools, show them a use of tool, and you show them success. But every community is different. I said Anaheim, Brea, I live in Downey. The community is different, the people are different. You can't use that one phrase, like when they went to the door, you're going to die tonight, where would you go?
Yeah, yep.
Well, that's so general that, I don't know, I would have sacrificed. No, it fits the person. Everybody's gone through some kind of different thing. How do you react to, okay, what tools do we need
Yeah.
in this situation to accomplish our ministry to bring people to Christ?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'm sure we all have a snippet of an answer, so I want to keep it short so you guys have an opportunity as well. So earlier I said we are a recognized service organization at the LCMS, which means they're not only a financial partner, but they are also a partner that provides a lot of resources. One of the resources that they provide to all churches and any of our leaders is it's called Mission Insight, but it's these data and report. If you give like a shape of a zip code of where you're at in your community or what city, they run these very detailed data of who is in your community, right? Black and white, that's data. Mission Insight, right?
Yep. Mission.
What's the other one called? Mission Insight, and it's a demographic data, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we first and foremost ask the leader we're working with, the community that they're in, how well do you know your community, right? If you don't really know your community, you need to get to know your community in order to have impact, right? Think of it this way. I left my water bottle outside. Think of the gospel is the water that we drink. But everyone receives and hear and drink water differently. Maybe I'll drink out of a Yeti cup. Maybe someone drinks out of a plastic bottle. Maybe someone drinks out of the red little Solo cup. Whatever cup or drinking that's holding the water, maybe that's what they want to use to drink it, but the water is the same. The gospel is the same. But we need to contextualize how is it that they're willing to hear, right? That means you need to know your community. So first and foremost, we want to give them resources from our partners that can provide that report of understanding black and white, who are the people that you're serving, right? 1. 2, we also lead them into what we call a community exegesis. Now go and walk the community. Talk to the people in the community. Talk to business owners. Talk to people who are your neighbors. Just to listen, get to know them. And prayer walk. What is God already doing in the community that you can just participate in, right? Not just go and say, this is what I think you need, but really go listening and learning posture. So those are kind of some example of resources that we use to help an individual person really know their community and their neighbors before really then having those spiritual conversation. At least that's what we've been doing with the leaders we come alongside. Many of them actually know their community well. If you ever had President Mike Gibson speak at this church, one of his tagline has always been, it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds of people to reach all kinds of people. I grew up in a Asian American, 4th-generation Lutheran church in San Francisco. Very different than how it's worshipped today as I come here. But it works, right? It speaks to their context and their culture. But if you can maybe respond.
Yeah, and Stella was really talking about the how support looks like when someone is leading a church, but even from the individual who is not in the church, it starts with relationship. It starts with getting to know the person, right? What do they need? Where are they located? What is on their heart? What has God spoken to them that they feel it's part of that dream that they want to carry out? So it starts with a relational. It starts with the relational piece first, a conversation with them, and it starts also with multiple meetings, not just one time, but meeting with them on a consistent basis, so that they can know that we're there for them and that we want to contextualize our guide and our tools to them. And some of the things that we do constantly on our teams, when we meet with a leader, we don't necessarily always push our guide or our materials first. We listen to them. We hear what they have to say. We listen to what's on their heart. And if our tools are helpful to them, then we'll say, hey, we have this here. Do you want to go through it? Do you want to use it? So it starts with that relational piece too.
I go right to step-by-step guy. I'm like, here, solve all your problems. No, I think it's such a valid question, and sort of, this is my doctorate in so many ways, what I went deep. And I believe in an Acts 17 model. If you're going to talk about a corporate approach, you start in the marketplace. And Paul in Acts 17 is in Athens, and Athens is very much like Southern California, just like Corinth was very much like Southern California. It's a great point. And Paul starts in the marketplace. Let me just start with conversation. I'm going to go down to my local grocer. I'm going to go down to and just start, what's the vibe? What's the conversations? And this is the body of Christ doing this, right? And then all of a sudden, where do you get invited into? He got invited into certain homes. They're like, that resurrection thing, that sounds interesting. I want to hear more about it. Where does the church get invited into? From the marketplace, from your local Vons, your Ralphs, your 99 Ranch, whatever it is, right? And then wherever you're invited into, that is then when you get authority. And I think that's where the evangelism comes in, because then it's amazing. Paul ends up on Mars Hill. And this has birthed out a couple of interesting churches. But anyway, but Mars Hill is where the council, basically the Supreme Court or the city council, would meet of Athens. And he says, we'd like to hear it. At City Hall. Can you imagine a preacher being invited at City Hall? Like, can you just give us a quick sermon? It's amazing. It really is quite amazing. And I think that for me, that represents authority. That represents these people, there's certain people in Athens that then gave the gospel authority. And then we're going to speak boldly then. But just like Dahlia and Sally, we're going to start with a relationship. Simple, making relationships in our own context of the grocery store, the marketplace. And where are we invited into? And then where are we given authority to speak boldly the gospel? We're living the gospel all that time, right? We're living the gospel, shopping at our local Ralphs or Vons or whatever. And then we're invited. And that invitation for deeper relationship or deeper conversation. And then where are we given authority to speak that bold? Because we know our country needs the truth. We all know that truth of the gospel, that truth of Jesus. And yet it's been inverse in what many of us grew up with, is like, you just spoke it. You didn't need to wait an invitation. Now, as Paul waited in Athens for that invitation, so we wait for the invitation while living out the gospel. So Acts 17 model, marketplace, invitation, authority to speak.
Yeah. And then one final thing that I want to add to answer your question is that because Southern California is such a large region, we know that we cannot be driving everywhere because we don't have the time or the capacity for that.
We've tried.
Yeah, we've tried. And so one of the things that Stella has been wanting and very intentional to do is expanding our team so that she's in the San Gabriel Valley area. John is in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm in LA, and it doesn't mean that we only stay and we help leaders in that area, but at least there's an associate city director there who is for that area. And in the future, we do want to expand the team so that we can have more associate city directors, being in different pockets of Southern California.
And we're also being very prayerfully and intentionally diversifying the team, not just, for sure culturally, ethnically, generationally. Belen, who's on the team, she's Eritrean American. We recently identified another young gentleman who's Nigerian American, who will be great addition to the team. And really it's because we do live in a very diverse place, and to come alongside leaders, they need to see leaders who look like them. And it really encourages and empowers them to see people who look like them, like, oh, I can lead too. And for, Osahan, the Nigerian American, who can come alongside someone who's African American, right? Or Belen, who comes alongside women who are of color. Or even Dale, who come alongside someone who can speak fluent Spanish. Or I come alongside someone who can speak Cantonese, right? Of course, we don't miss our Anglo friend.
I'm the real unicorn here. That's,
but that's
the Kansan,
But to me, that's the beauty of every day. We get to see what God is doing, these God moments, but also truly see the body of Christ coming together in a very healthy way. And that's what John meant by we have so much to learn from one another and with each other, and it's a great thing, and we learn from our leaders as well. I'm looking at time, it's 10:25. I'm not sure when we're supposed to wrap up, but...
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Pastor.
But I do want to
Pastor.
first thank you to our guests.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't need a microphone, y'all can hear me, right? I just want to let you know about the practical aspects of this, how Link has influenced us here at this place. And there are two really major ways that just our limited contact with Stella has influenced us and really breathed some new life into our youth ministry. Pastor Eric at this, well, he's probably done now, but is teaching a high school Bible study within this Christian education hour. Partnered up with one of our lay leaders, a recent arrival to this congregation, Brandon Creel, who is chairing what is now called our Board of Youth, but will be constitutionally amended to be our Board of Youth and Family Ministries. And so you may have heard of the it started out as Young Family Bible Study. Now it's youngish because we don't want to be too exclusive. But Thursday nights, Pastor Eric is spearheading those efforts. And then the other big thing is the event that we're having on February 15th. It's in your bulletin, that visioning event. We partnered with LCEF, Lutheran Church Extension Fund, for some long-term visioning. We all joined in there for our 60th anniversary celebration, but now we got to get with it for the next 60 years. Because if we do nothing, this place will just turn to sawdust. And so we are working very, very hard. So I urge you to be part of that long-term visioning that's going to start February 15th. We got Reverend Billy Brea from LCEF to work with us on that. We're going to need some horses to pull the wagon too. So come to that event. We would love to have as many of our people here be a part of that. Stella, you gave us a lot of encouragement getting that off of the ground. So anyway, thanks again to you all. Appreciate you. What you do. I got to go. We got worship. Those of you that are here for worship, we're going to get going. So thank you again.